There's this pursuit right now, and what they say is defending their clients' First Amendment rights. We're talking about the attorneys for Donald Trump, the former president of the United States. They are standing against what they believe to be an overstepping prosecution with the 2024 elections just around the corner. They argue this is, Kevin, election interference by what the judge has been ruling that Donald Trump can't talk about any of the evidence in his case.
Yeah, we're talking about that protective order. Donald Trump put out a tweet or whatever on Truth Social that said, if you come after me, I'll come after you. Will a judge issue a protective order? Well, Donald Trump had to respond to Jack Smith's filing, and they're saying it would violate Donald Trump's free speech if the judge put in a protective order, and it raises interesting legal questions. Joining us now is Roshini Rajkumar, WJR legal expert and podcast host of The Crisis Files. Good morning. How are you, Roshini?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, we heard a lot of comments from the Trump team talking about questioning the DOJ's integrity and selective accountability and undermining trust. But when you get to the legal issues, it looks like they're going to lean heavily on free speech. Is that a good strategy, do you think?
You know, I don't know that it's a good strategy because when you're talking about a protective order, you're not coming out and saying Donald Trump can't go talk, can't express his First Amendment rights. What we are talking about is evidence that may come out, that will come out as different witnesses are interviewed. So we don't even really know all of those things yet. Some of the pieces of evidence, or we can speculate on some we know, but we're talking about evidence that comes out during the discovery process when both sides get to talk with various witnesses, cross-examine various witnesses. And in normal proceedings, these are the kinds of things that happen behind closed doors for just the different parties involved in the litigation in the case to be involved with. So it's kind of getting, I have to agree with some of the commentary that's out there, and what some of the prosecutors are claiming is that Donald Trump is trying to try his case in the court of public opinion and bring things to people just directly himself. I mean, the thing is, just because something is said in a deposition or just because there is a document doesn't always make it admissible evidence in a court of law. So there are some dangers with just disclosing anything that comes the defense's way. It might not even be used by the prosecution. So this is a very crucial point in this whole proceeding against Donald Trump. And normally, a protective order is just a matter of course. Both sides are very happy to have that so that they can plan their trial strategy or whatever, their legal strategy. And it's not as terrible as a gag order. A gag order really is the judge saying, hey, no one can talk, no one can do X, Y, or Z. So this is an interesting moment, and it, at least for me, and I'm pretty neutral on all this stuff. I really just try to look at the law. It does sound like Trump antics, and his attorneys need to be careful.
Yeah, so Jack Smith wants a protective order because he's worried about leaks, that the whole case will get leaked out before a jury or the judge gets to hear the evidence. Is there, in your opinion, evidence that Trump is already leaking information? He talks in such code. I don't know I don't know who he's talking to or what he's saying most of the time.
Well, I don't know if he's leaking things, but because some of it hasn't even been found yet, Kevin. But the very fact that he has his own social media platform, he can just tweet out as he wants. I mean, it's just not a good idea for any defendant, especially the former president of the United States, to be making things that seem like threats or actual threats out there in the public realm. So, if he were my client, I would just say, Donald, can you be quiet for a couple of weeks? Give us a chance to assess, give us a chance to depose these witnesses and then move on. But it does really seem like there's some delay tactics in play here because, look, already this decision was supposed to have been made, around 5 p.m. on Monday, and now there's going to be some kind of hearing at a date that I haven't seen yet, sometime this week.
Yeah, being quiet for a couple of weeks is one thing, but when you're in the midst of a presidential campaign and the rhetoric out there has to do specifically with this case, I mean, for Trump, he kind of feels that he's at a disadvantage. Everyone else in the media can publicly accuse him of stuff while he's supposed to simply stay quiet during an election year. That complicates matters, doesn't it? How do you balance that? Need to run for office while in order to stay quiet?
Tom, that's a really great point. It does complicate matters for sure. And I would say he could say things like, I mean, he could certainly say, there are some charges out there that are unfounded. If he truly believes that, he should say that. That would be exercising his First Amendment rights. But he can't sit and say, well, this person's going to say this or point the finger at this person or that. I mean, what I would recommend to Donald Trump is that he stays on message for his campaign and he continues to grow his already pretty strong following, because anytime he seems more and more crazy, he is probably going to lose any of the moderates that are wondering who should I vote for in 2024, as well as his own party and some of his faithful following. So it's not really about staying quiet. It's about choosing what you say on the campaign trail and making sure you keep any criminal allegations over here while you continue to do business as usual. I mean, that is a strategy he could follow, but we've seen that's rarely his strategy.
Right. And whether or not he's willing to subject to a strategy, a communication strategy is, it's a hard thing for him to do. So if you were advising him and a reporter maybe gets some leak, he's, got to contact a source from within the Department of Justice and they get some evidence brought to their attention and they decide to ask Donald Trump about that specific piece of evidence. How should he respond to the reporter? It's hard for him to stay quiet in those instances.
Right. Well, having played the role of a reporter, I've been a reporter in the past. A reporter is going to act on whatever he or she finds. And I never fault a reporter for asking questions if they get that information, especially if it's credible. Now, what Donald Trump could say is refer it to his attorney, but we know that's rarely his response. He could certainly have his legal team go to the court and try to root out any expected or suspected leak. There are actual things he could do, but then blasting it back as if it's true. I mean, I think what you try to do in those situations is if something is disparaging against you and you're asked about it by a reporter, you have to really question it. You have to publicly in that open forum, because that's where you were asked, you have to question, well, where does that come from? Who told you that? I mean, and really question how any reporter might get a piece of information that's possibly against you.
All right, I'm going to make a prediction, then I want you to make one. I'm going to predict the judge will issue a protective order, and I'm going to predict that Donald Trump will violate it. Now, if you're the judge, do you predict the judge will just warn Donald Trump, will make him pay a fine, or spend a night in jail?
Oh, wow, that's a great question, Kevin. Whoa, way to put me on the spot. I agree with you in that the judge is going to grant this protective order. I think the judge will accompany it with some very detailed and tough language that if it is violated, here's what's going to happen. And sort of kind of like just try me, dude, sort of an action in those instructions. It is, wow, I don't think any judge is going to throw Donald Trump in jail immediately, but boy, I cannot wait to see what those instructions are. They accompany this protective order.
I have a feeling that somehow, some way, some evidence is going to find its way out in the press, whether it's from Donald Trump or maybe it's a leak from the Department of Justice itself. We've seen it in the past. We'll find out. We always appreciate you and your perspective for coming on. Roshini Rajkumar, political strategist and attorney and host of the Crisis Files podcast. Thanks so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.